Hi, everyone. Welcome to day 2 of Behind the Scenes Weekend. We're so excited to have you back again. Today, we're going to start with Hannah Mauser. She's going to teach us a little bit about personal branding. So, Hannah, I'll let you take it away.
Yeah, okay, cool. I was telling the directors that my roommate's cat is in here today and she's like craving attention, so if she makes an appearance, that is her. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. There it goes. Okay, so like Lauren said, my name is Hannah Mauser, and today I'm gonna go through a little session with you about personal branding. If you want to go to the next slide. Oh, it looks like someone else is in the waiting room. Okay, so just to kind of go over what I'm going to do today. So I'll tell you guys a little bit about me. I'm going to talk about forming your brand, some tools and resources for you, and then how you can communicate your brand. Yeah, so normally if we were in person, this would be a little bit more interactive, but really today I'm going to give you some tools and resources that I have found helpful over the last 4 years of being at Iowa State. And then again, we can go through any questions at the end. If you want to go to the next slide. There we go. So a little bit about me. I am currently a senior, graduating in a month, in apparel merchandising with a minor in journalism. For those of you who now have the option to do fashion communications, which I'm very jealous of, but that's basically what I'm doing. And some involvement of me or some things I've done at ISU. So I was highly involved in Trend Magazine. I was a fashion director for quite a few semesters, and then I did online graphic design director, and then I worked my way up to editor-in-chief for the 2020 year, which was certainly interesting. As far as fashion show goes, I was on the social media committee my freshman year, and then I was a photography member, took a year off for Trend, and now I'm back as the social media director. YMA Fashion Scholarship Fund, which if you guys are going to be at the student panel later, I might be able to talk a little bit more about that. I'm a 2-time scholarship winner there. I attended London College of Fashion in the Fashion Media and Communications program, which that's kind of where I found my kind of love for branding and fashion communications and such. And then I also did a few internships with Centric Brands in New York City, and then Rooted Studios, which was a former Iowa State student who started up her own brand. And so I got to help her with some branding and social media stuff this past summer. And then I'm currently doing some freelance work for WGSN, which is a fashion, well, more than fashion, a kind of forecasting site for various different industries. Okay, so I'm gonna ask you guys a question. If you guys want to put it in the chat box, you want to unmute your mic. I just want to ask you guys, why do you think personal branding is important? Could be anything. And Fez is gonna meow in the background. Okay, well, I can just tell you. Oh, there you go. So you can stand out. Yeah, for sure. So a company can see if you're compatible for their brand. Absolutely. Yeah, so if you want to go to the next slide, Lauren, you can. The way that I view personal branding, in which I might kind of view it differently than I have in the past, I would say, but it's really just what describes you. And like Trinity said, so a company can see if you're compatible with their brand. I will say if you're going for like a very much more creative position, brand is usually going to give you some kind of a creative project to see if you match those values and match kind of the aesthetic of a brand. And so that also shines through in your resume and your cover letters. It shines through in your digital portfolio. And so today I'm going to give you guys a few things that I found helpful in forming my own creative brand to kind of, as I'm applying to positions and stuff, these are the kind of things that stand out to brands as they're looking over my portfolio. So if you guys want to write these down on your phone, you can. If you want to, I'm sure the behind the scenes directors can share this presentation with you as well. But really it's how I start with it is what is describing you. So this could be colors, it could be artists and songs that really inspire you, words, quotes, shapes, symbols, patterns, places, feelings, textures, aesthetics. This list could really go on, but also look at various different industries. So if you're really into beauty, look at more of the beauty space. I know this past year with COVID, and I'm someone who I love interior design. It's something that my mom really loves too. But especially with COVID, working from home, doing school from home, I really care about my space and like how my space makes me feel. So the home space has been really big for me, and like what shapes am I drawn to, and how can I incorporate that into like my brand, fashion, wellness, lifestyle, what's going on in the political environment, what's going on environmentally, kind of just look at what inspires you, what kind of drives your passion, and all these different things can go into your brand. And then from this, I usually go to Pinterest to kind of start making a board, which we'll get into here in a little bit as well. If you want to go to the next slide, Lauren. So this is a kind of a mock board that I made. I went on Pinterest. I kind of looked at a lot of the current pins that I'm making, or that I'm pinning. So as you can see, I do have some like fashion things, but I also have like a font that I really like. I also have a home space that I really love, and like a little side table that I thought was super interesting. Something that I'm really drawn to as well with branding is like graphic design. Um, Fez, Fez is asking for attention. Come up here. Um, so I really love looking at graphic design things and like different cool quotes I find on Pinterest. And you can always add like those kind of things. And then in the end, you have this like really beautiful color palette that you come up with just from all these photos. And that's kind of the start of where I start making my personal brand is, so I get all these images together, and then from there I'm like, okay, what colors am I really drawn to right now, and how can I reflect this in my portfolio or my resume and cover letters and stuff like that. And this isn't something that is probably going to stay the same. My personal branding palette mood board looked a lot different 2 years ago than it does now. Like I remade this a few nights ago, and I compared it to like what I would have made 2 years ago or even a year ago, and it's like completely different. So this is something that I would say I enjoy doing often, just to see how my style is changing, to see, you know, as I'm graduating college, what brands I'm more drawn to than others and stuff like that. If you want to go ahead and go to the next slide. So some tools and resources. I'm giving you guys a ton of stuff today. So again, you can feel free to write this down. I'll give this to the BTS directors to send out as well. But Pinterest and Instagram are obviously going to be very big for your image researching, image inspiration. Most of the time I use Pinterest and Instagram when I'm searching for things that inspire me recently. So again, I use this for inspiration. I use it for mood boards, trend boards. A lot of the work that I'm doing right now with like WGSN freelance work, I really use Instagram a lot, just because when you're searching for one thing over and over, you're going to start getting advertisements on your feed of like different brands that you may like. That's the good thing about the Instagram algorithm. That's really great. As long as you're following influencers and brands that you're really drawn to, you're most likely going to start getting advertisements for other brands that you may also like to look at. I use these for color stories, as I kind of explained in the last slide. Textures, even make sure you're using the bookmark and like saving the bookmark feature on Instagram. I use that all the time. And you're just saving images. And then also just look to the explore page. Again, you're probably going to start getting influencers and brands that kind of match the photos that you're already liking and the brands that you're already following. And then obviously influencers is a huge one as well. A lot of other image sources that I use that are really great, that I actually use in this presentation as well, as Unsplash has some really great royalty-free, or what's the right word for that? Free image, like stock images basically. That would be really good to use even for like presentations throughout college, and if you're in a class and you're doing a project, like that's a really great resource to use. Also Pexels. And then fashion editorials, I actually didn't know about until I went to London, but on there they post a lot of images from, whether it's like a Vogue editorial shoot, or like there's so many different magazines on there that post their images, and that's a really great place as well to kind of get inspiration from. And then also industry news. So what's trending right now, maybe a little bit biased with WGSN since I am kind of working with them right now, but also I've been using WGSN probably since freshman year. And I'm sure a lot of the other seniors in this chat right now can agree that like as you come into college, WGSN is a big one that your professors hit on just because it is a forecasting site. You're not only getting fashion news, you're also getting home and beauty, and it's not a free resource by any means, but if you do end up coming to Iowa State, you do get like a free subscription to it throughout your however long you're here for, and that's a really great place to go and just keep up with what is trending in the fashion space. And then there's also Pantone is a huge one. Obviously, be looking out for like what's the color of the year right now, or just different palettes on there. Business of Fashion is a really great resource to just go to for fashion news. Who What Wear is a great one, and then Vogue Business is a really great one. There's a few other sites that you would need a subscription to as well, but again, if you come to Iowa State, you're most likely going to get those free subscriptions, so you can use those resources. Another one or another thing that I think is important is just to learn different programs. It's not required. Like I'm a merchandising student, and so obviously I'm not designing lines and stuff. I cannot draw for my life, but one of the biggest things that helped me into this kind of space and deciding that I really like the visual side of things was AMD 210, which is a class that you take and you learn Photoshop, you learn InDesign, Illustrator, and I really learned that I like learning on this like digital, or I like learning these digital platforms to then help me kind of build my portfolio up. And it's also just a great skill set to have going into an interview or whatever it may be, even if you're going for like a merchandising position, knowing that like you also have a little bit of experience in Adobe or whatever it may be. If it's something else, if you have I don't know, say you have a certificate in like digital marketing or something like that. Like they like to see that you have those additional little tidbits so that they know that you understand various different parts of the industry. Another great one that I haven't really used, but I've seen very many TikToks about and people using in place of Adobe, because obviously for Adobe, you do have to pay for it. You can get like student discounts if you come here, or like really anywhere you go, you most likely get a student discount. And then for like classes and stuff, you usually get a free, again, subscription to it. But Canva is free. They have a bunch of different things on there you can use, and you most likely can do a lot of the different things that you can do on Photoshop, just in like a much easier format. And I've heard a lot of people use it for the resumes and it works great. So just a few things that you can take into account. I'll actually answer this question that Trinity just asked because it kind of goes with what I was just talking about. So did you take any other classes outside of AMD 210 to further develop your Photoshop and Design Illustrator skills? I would say no. With being a merchandising student, and I don't know if this is, I can't speak to like being a design student, if you kind of learn more of those skills in those classes, in your design classes, but a lot of it was me just kind of playing around with it and like learning on myself or learning by myself. I would do YouTube tutorials. Right now, like for social media for the fashion show, a lot of the posts that I'm making for our feed, I will literally go on TikTok and like look up Photoshop tutorials as to like how I can make a cool post for our Instagram. And so if you get on like design TikTok and like branding TikTok, which like, okay, I'm a huge TikTok user. So if you're not on TikTok, you definitely should be. But there's so many different like design and techniques that you can learn on TikTok that is like much easier broken down tutorials than you'll find even on like YouTube, say. So I would say a lot of it, and like this is kind of branding in general, and like I mean, because we touch on a little bit on branding in like a lot of our AMD classes, but I would say a lot of it is like very experience driven and like learning it on your own. Like if you really love branding, then like take that with yourself to like then go out and find other classes that you could possibly do. I guess another class I took was fashion forecasting, and maybe I think that kind of helped in understanding like how I can brand something based on a company I'm given or like a person I'm given to like then help brand, if that makes sense. Um, some other tools and resources. This is just some additional inspiration that I personally look to and really love, and some brands that I really love. So a lot of these are a lot of magazines like Scone, Dazed, Wonderland. Pat magazine was a huge one when I was in Trend. My editor in chief specifically, my co-editor and I, Megan Schaus, we would look to Pat, magazine for a lot of inspiration because they just have some really wonderful visuals. And I think they're based out of Italy, I want to say, but that was a great one. Local Wolves is like another little like zine type of magazine. I think they're only digital, I want to say. They have some really great visuals. Goon by Alex Gowan is a great account to follow. Retrograde's another magazine. Spark is a student magazine based in Texas on one of their campuses there. Kinfolk is my absolute favorite. I love this magazine. They're based out of Denmark, I want to say, but they're like a global magazine and very much match my aesthetic. So I love looking to them. And then just some other ones. ID is another kind of online resource. Paloma Wool, Mad Happy, and Lisa Says Got are currently my like top 3 brands that I just love. And those are all apparel companies, but I kind of looked at to them for colors and different styles and stuff like that. Okay, so communicating your brand, yay, the fun part. So once you've kind of done your mood boarding, once you've written down your list of like, how do I want to present myself as an individual? Consistency is so important. When you come to a brand and like your resume and your cover letter, like the header matches each other, like the littlest of things I think really make you stand out. And then even taking that to like your more professional uses like LinkedIn and your digital portfolio, I think that's something that really makes someone stand out. Social media, I'm not going to sit here and tell you like, oh, your social media should be perfect, because like social media is social media. But I would say like if you're applying to like a social media position or some kind of creative position where they might ask you for your Instagram handle, or they might say like, oh, if you have an Instagram you'd like to share with us. I've definitely gotten that question before on like applications. It'll have you like put in your social media, even if it's not like your personal social media account. If you start like a styling account or an account where you share your designs on, I think that's a really great way to kind of have like a digital portfolio but on social media, so you can kind of share that with places that you're applying to. And then also like your personal website. So this is usually something that you'll do within a class. I know for AMD 210, you are required to make a website for your digital portfolio. I've heard other design students say that they have to have a website to kind of put on like their illustrations on or whatever. So I personally use Squarespace. It is a platform you do have to pay for, and I kind of worked my way up to it. Do I think you have to pay for your website? Absolutely not. If you can use like a free resource, I would say use it before you pay for anything, because really like the only reason I'm using my online portfolio or my website right now is for my digital portfolio. So it's totally up to you, but there's also WordPress, Wix. I started on Weebly in high school. I started like a little blog, and then I just used the free version. And then I definitely worked my way up to feeling like it was worth it to pay for a website, but I don't think it's necessarily. And I did put a screenshot of my social media. So I love social media. I wouldn't mind working in it eventually. So I do like to share my social media profile with companies when I'm applying places. I always have my handle on my resume. But again, like I also have another account for like a few design and branding stuff I've done. So totally up to you as to like how you want to present yourself. But as you can see, like in my feed now, I have a lot of like blues and greens, and it kind of goes with like my mood board I made earlier. And this isn't something I did intentionally. It's just something that happens over the course of time. So go ahead and go to the next one. So this is an example of some personal branding I did a few years ago. This is what my resume, cover letter, LinkedIn looked like for quite a long time. Right now I'm kind of going through like how I want to present myself now as I'm applying to jobs and like going into the professional world, what I want it to look like. So I'm going through some rebranding myself right now, but I made this little like logo. I still have the same one on my website currently. But like again, my headers on like my resume and my cover letter is the same. I also have it the same on my LinkedIn account. Just having that consistency, I think, is something that really stands out to people or stands out to employers. And again, like when I did my branding a couple years ago, I gave this same talk like 2 years ago. So this is an example from then. But like I had a lot of like tans and neutrals, and like I'm a very neutrals color palette gal, but I'm starting to incorporate a little bit more color into my branding, if you will, which I'll show you guys in the next slide. But this is just an example of what mine looked like a few years ago when I was a sophomore. And then as you can see now, like I did change it up a little bit, and I have a little bit more of like that green in there. And as you kind of like get more experience, you might want to like change up the format a little bit to have more space on your resume. Yeah, this is, and then you can see in the bottom in the contact me, I have like my phone, my email, my LinkedIn. Pro tip for LinkedIn, always go in and change like your backslash. So like usually if you share a link, it's like LinkedIn, bunch of numbers, whatever, but there's a way you can go in and change your personal like URL. So definitely go in and like, so mine's linkedin.com/in/Hannah Mauser. And it's just like easier to put on your resume that way. So you don't have like a mile long link that people probably aren't going to go type in themselves. I have my Instagram on there. So again, like for that, you could always go in and put like your styling Instagram or your whatever design Instagram. And what else? Oh, and then my website is on there as well. So yeah, if you want to go to the next one. Okay, that's all I have. We have about 5 minutes left. I know I didn't give you guys a ton of like things to do during this session, but I hope I gave you a bunch of resources that you can take into your own hands. If you do have any questions, I have my email up there, my website, LinkedIn, also Instagram, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. But if anyone has questions right now, I would love to open up the floor if you want to type them in the chat box, or it doesn't have to be pertaining to branding either. If you guys have questions about trend or journalism, fashion journalism, that kind of a thing, feel free to ask them now. And if you don't have any questions, feel free to email me, DM me. What are your favorite resources to make customizable resumes? Great question. I would say if you can stray away from like the templates on like Word, say, like I think they're really great to use, but I also think you should be able to personalize it. I personally make mine on Photoshop just because I love using Adobe programs. But again, I think if you look at Canva, there's honestly so many different templates on there that you can use, but you can also personalize. So say like you make your mood board, you kind of have a color palette and you want to incorporate that across various different platforms, whether it's your Instagram, whether it's your digital portfolio, like take those little things and personalize them as well. So like add in that color palette, or add in, maybe you have like a little graphic that you made to represent your brand, or like a little logo or whatever. So I would say like don't just like fill in the template and call it good. Like definitely take the time to personalize it, even if you are using a template. Great question though. Do you have a job currently? And if so, what are some things you do in your job? Yeah, so a lot of us seniors are probably applying for full-time positions right now, which is a very scary thing to be doing already. But yeah, so currently I am freelancing for WGSN, which is, again, like I said, a fashion forecast, well, a forecasting site in general. So they not only do fashion, they also do home, beauty, lifestyle. They do like food and drink. And so that's what I'm doing currently. If it turns into a full-time job, that would be really amazing. But as far as like, so basically for them, I'm a trend researcher currently. So again, my fashion forecasting class that I took was a really great stepping stone into like going into this kind of field of work. But with that, I basically research brands, I research different trends that are going on in specifically the beauty space right now. So I'm researching a lot of like smaller beauty brands and what is kind of important to them right now and like how we're going to see that kind of evolve within the next like 2-3 years. And because like a lot of the stuff that little brands are doing right now are definitely making steps in like what the big brands are doing because or they're realizing that consumers want like those smaller and like more intimate brands. So I would say that's kind of a lot of the work I'm doing right now. It's a very open-ended, but I really love it. What area of the fashion industry would you like to work in after you graduate? This is a great question because for me, so like I have a major in apparel merchandising, but I don't necessarily want to be in like a merchant, like a buyer, so to say. I did work in sales for a little bit in one of my internships, loved it, amazing experience. But I also realized that like I don't want to be in sales. So definitely take those experiences, even if you're not sure about them, because then you know you can always eliminate them out if you didn't like it. Um, and then I also don't necessarily want to be like a full-on journalist either because I have a minor in journalism. So I'm sort of in this like very odd creative space that doesn't have like a definitive title, so to say. But again, I would love to work at a place like WGSN that has like, they work a lot with visuals, but then also like, how is the political and environmental stuff like also impacting the fashion industry and the beauty industry and so on. So I'd love to work at a place like that. Or just in like social media. I love digital media. I love building websites and looking at like analytics and stuff like that. So that's also an option that I'm looking into. But I don't know if you have room or time for any more questions though. It's 12:30.
Yeah, I think we're gonna wrap up with that. But thank you so much, Hannah. We really loved this presentation. I mean, we were writing things
Yeah.
down too, so we're very inspired. But thank you everyone for coming to this session today. If you would love to, or if you'd like to, please tune in for our next session at 1 o'clock today. And now please take this time to go check out some of the pre-recorded videos that are on our website. So thank you so much, Hannah, and we will see you guys at the next session.
Bye guys.